Hey there, Chris Courtney here for New Pragmatic. So good to have you along for this short video on using images inside of Figma. The design we have on screen right now is a fine wireframe, but the moment we add images, that's when it becomes more of a prototype. That's when we begin to take it more seriously. So in this video, I'm going to show you a number of different ways that you can populate a wireframe like this to add images. The first way that we're going to look at is going to be actually utilizing the squares that are on the screen right now. These squares are just rectangles that have been drawn, and they're no different than drawing a rectangle just like that. When you select a rectangle, it will allow you to change the fill of that rectangle. To do that, I'm going to select the fill, and that's going to bring up this panel here. And instead of having solid, I'm just going to come down to image. Now you'll see that checkerboard pattern is there. That's going to allow us to choose an image to bring into the file. In this case, I'll select the otter, I'll select the otter. And there's our cute little otter. Now, we have a number of options available to us to begin to change how that otter is displayed. Right now, this is a fill, but if we wanted to change it and crop the image, this allows us to really move that otter around. If you select the area that's outside of those crop marks, that will allow you to grow or shrink the otter and move it around. And then you can also, I'm going to zoom in here, you can also change the crop by moving those crop marks around. That's a little unnecessary in this particular instance because this is meant to be a grid. So in this case, I'm going to simply adjust my picture like so. You can rotate it also while you're in here. So if you wanted to tweak that, you could do that as well. And it's almost like a little otter mugshot at this point. And there you go. Just click off of the image, and now the image is within that rectangle that you already have created. Now, what happens if we have an image that's already in the file? And what I'll show you now is a different way of populating one of these. So if I say place image, and let's go get the panda this time, if I select the rectangle, it will place the image right into that rectangle, which is really great. And then you can do the same thing that you did before. You come down here to crop, and you can crop, you can move this around, you can tilt him if you want to, or her, whatever you decide to do. So let's get a image from one of our plugins. So in this particular case, I'm going to search for the Unsplash plugin, and I'm going to insert a random animal. So here is that random animal. Let's see what it gave us. It gave us a very large rabbit, probably a kangaroo. And as you can see, that image is outside of the rectangles that we have drawn, or the squares that we have drawn. But we want to get this image inside of that. The frame itself is now saying that the image that I created on the canvas, it's now associated with the wireframe, but it's not actually inside of any of the individual shapes. It's just inside of the frame of the wireframe itself. You can also see how this is associated when you turn off clip content. That shows you what else is leaking off the side of the frame. What we really want is we want this image inside of that rectangle. There's a couple of ways that we can do this. So if we had this selected, and then we went to the plugin, and then we said insert random animal, it's probably not going to pull up the same raccoon, but it pulled up a slightly smaller raccoon. This is actually a rabbit. And it placed it inside of that rectangle. Provided that you know where you want the image to go, and you've selected it previously, you get the rabbit in the rectangle. We have the slightly larger rabbit here that we want to get inside of here. Well, there's a couple of ways that we can do that. One, we could drag this in and simply select both the image that we have of the kangaroo and the rectangle that we also have, and we could mask that. And by masking it, we've simply said, okay, this kangaroo is now going to be it's going to take its shape from the rectangle that was below it. What's interesting about that approach is this gives us the opportunity to come in and begin altering the curves of the shape itself. And you can do the same thing with the rectangle if you've placed the image inside. So if you wanted to do something similar, you certainly could do that here. And fun fact, if you make it large enough, you can make it a perfect circle. So just know that the rectangles can also be turned into circles if you use that border radius enough. But masking it is an option. That's not the only option you have available to you. If we pull in yet another image, and this one I will do the same thing. I will go back to our Unsplash plugin, and I'll pull in another random animal. Here is a lion. If I pull that lion in, and I say copy properties, and I come over to this, and I say paste properties, it will also place that into the square. So that's just a few different ways that you can go and place images inside. Now there are other values that were here as well that I'd like to show you. Just take a second to look at. One, we looked at crop. Tile gets really big, so let's go ahead and shrink this down. And when we shrink it down, you can see what tile does. It gives you one of those classic MySpace backgrounds. And I'm sure that there is a use that you might have for this. I personally don't find myself looking to use it all that often. Fit is another one where this is just going to say I want the entire image needs to fit inside of the shape that I have. And then there's also fill. And this simply says make sure everything is covered. There's also a number of controls here. So you can come in and change the exposure on the image. And these are very much what I oftentimes refer to as the Photoshop-like controls. Like if I wanted a black and white image, I just remove the saturation. If I want to make the image feel warmer or cooler, I change the temperature. I can change the tint as well. And this is really either I'm on tint, I'm either adding magenta or I'm pulling magenta out of it. Or I could say you're adding greens and blues. You can change the highlights. You can change the shadows. It gives you some measure of control over the image itself, even though this is a vector-based program, not a raster-based or pixel-based program, much like a Photoshop. So that is how we pull images into random shapes. So you have the ability to place it directly into the image. You can also place an image directly into one of these squares. So you can place it directly in there. You can mask, and then you can copy the properties and place them in. So there's a number of different ways that you can get to the point where you have a wide variety of images available. One of the things that I really like about placement of images and utilizing a grid is that it makes it really easy to come back and alter our designs, like this one, for instance. If I'm going to try to give this like a real focal point, utilizing the grid and utilizing the cropping tools that I have with image. Now this is set to fill, so it's making sure that everything's filled. Actually, we'll just change it to crop. And as you can see, the size of that image is massive. But there is the crop that we have available to us. And you can really see how you can basically take over a design really quickly with a few moves and utilizing images, set that focal point. Watch the video that I have on utilizing grids and creating grids, because it can make it really easy for you to begin to add structure and hierarchy to your projects overall. Hey, thanks for taking a moment out of your day to dig into utilizing images inside of Figma. If you liked this video, please click that like button. And if you'd like to know when we release new videos, be sure to subscribe. Finally, if you're looking for one-on-one mentorship, come check out newpragmatic.com. I'm Chris Courtney for New Pragmatic. Thanks for watching.